Hi, everyone. Welcome to the WEI Tech Talk podcast. I'm your host today, Shawn Murphy. I'm a cybersecurity solutions architect here at WEI. And our topic of conversation today is SecOps modernization. I'm super excited to be joined by PJ Bihuniak. I hope I got that correctly, PJ. He's the VP of Strategic East at Palo Alto Networks, focusing on all things next-gen security. PJ, welcome to the WEI Tech Talk podcast.
Thank you, Shawn. Happy to be here.
I'd love for you to just start with a quick introduction, a little bit of background about your role, what you do, who you talk to, and
Sure.
how it relates to our topic today.
Sure, happy to. So I've been with Palo Alto for approximately 7 months. I'm responsible for our Cortex business unit for a division that we call Strategics East, which includes our strategic and major and enterprise clients on the East Coast, as well as our financial services, system integrators, and service provider clients. And I have been in security for approximately 20 some odd years. Started off very early in my career at a company called ArcSight, which ended up getting acquired by Hewlett Packard, and then had the opportunity to work in an endpoint security company that was acquired by Sophos, and then was running a professional services, managed services, and incident response firm for approximately 6 years. And most recently, before this, was running a company out of Ukraine as their president, and also was involved in application security very recently as well before joining Palo Alto. So happy to be here, Shawn. Looking forward to the conversation.
I'm super excited. You've got a really strong background to educate our customers about modernization of SecOps in general. Also a topic very near and dear to my heart. So I wanted to start with why listen to this podcast? What are our customers going to get out of this? I feel like the SecOps landscape has been shifting under our feet, and we'll kind of dig into the people and the process and the technology aspects of that. But in a nutshell, what's the value proposition of modernizing SecOps today, right now?
It's a good question, Shawn. You know, it's interesting. The right now, CISOs and SOC leaders are under more pressure than ever. And, you know, the pressure is coming from more alerts, more endpoints, more cloud, more identity. And the reality is, from where I sit, most SOCs are just busy, but they're not effective. And the work hasn't really changed, right? But the environment has. And the best SOCs that I've seen aren't the ones that are processing the most alerts. They're actually the ones that make the fewest high quality decisions. And, you know, I'm hoping that we go there with this conversation, but I'd love to talk a little bit about how leaders can cut through the noise and really focus on outcomes, and then get their SOCs working the way the business really needs them to.
Yeah, totally. I talk all the time about how the SOC is typically seen as a technology sector where we build, deploy technology, we handle alerts, and we just try and keep our head above water from an operational perspective. But you could turn that around, and you could think of SecOps as being a strategic business enabler, because it allows us to harness new risks. Like, I know CISOs are asking me all the time about, can we allow our employees to go to ChatGPT? And, you know, that's a huge business enabler. And we as the SecOps team want to be able to say, yes, if under these conditions, if we have these controls in place, and if we can prevent these threats. So yeah, I think that's a smart observation. I had one observation that actually came out of the World Economic Forum last year at Davos. So right now, a bunch of world leaders are in Davos. But last year, they took a poll of all the partner organizations, and they found that only 14% thought that they were confident that they could handle cyber risks with the current people, and importantly, their skills. So I think there's a people aspect to this too. There's a lot of pressure
100%.
on those teams.
It's funny you say that, because having done this as long as I have, and I think I've done, I don't know, somewhere north of like 160 sort of SOC transformations over the years. The problem that I'm seeing is it's a model, not a technology problem, right? it's a SOC problem in general, and everyone's always talked about SIM technology or EDR technology, et cetera. It's the challenge actually ends up becoming the human and economic tax associated with burnout and churn and the economics of tool sprawl and everything else. And so, candidly, I think it's just CISOs and SOCs need to stop doing the wrong work. Fundamentally, stop. That's what has to happen. Stop doing the wrong work. It's not about chasing alerts that don't matter. That's kind of the old mindset, right, of 10 years ago. And that was volume based. Today it's impact based. Like, let's reward the impact and start measuring the outcomes that matter. I mean, we talk about mean time to detection, mean time to containment, and the reduction in business risk exposure. But the reality is a lot of those metrics are very reactive metrics. They're a good leading indicator of future performance, but they're not a good indicator of your overall risk posture. And I think that's the area that really needs to be focused on at the CISO level, and quite frankly, at the board of director level.
Yeah, some of my favorite conversations with CISOs are about metrics because they've gone through this process of putting metrics, like putting a stake in the ground and saying, these are the metrics we're going to measure. And ultimately, the SOC sort of games them and figures out a way to process more alerts to hit that metric, or to work the lower hanging fruit to improve their mean time to respond metrics or whatever. So like the metrics conversation, I think, is super interesting. But going back to something you said about the sort of process element of this, a lot of my customers are asking, how does AI figure into the solution? Or does it? Is it just an expensive new widget and is it not ready yet? I was going to save this for a little further down into the podcast, but everyone is asking about AI. I've had CISOs tell us that if it has AI in the name, we have a blank check. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about like what is the big strategic change that AI brings to the table?
That's a really good question, Shawn.
Big question.
From my perspective, and I think this is the part that organizations are getting wrong. AI doesn't replace humans. It's focused on removing low value work.
Mm.
And what we really need to be effective at doing is automating predictable, high volume tasks, right? Whether it's alert correlation or deduping or initial containment or enrichment. And we need to keep the humans at what they're really good at doing, which is applying judgment, which is identifying and understanding how to prioritize risk and making informed decisions that are really complex. These are the things that human beings thrive at and excel at. And I know that there is a vision around general intelligence, which is kind of the next generation of artificial intelligence or agentic AI. But the way I look at AI today, and I was actually just with a really, really sophisticated client last night in Florida, and we were talking about their adoption of AI and blockchain and a lot of the things they're doing around risk mitigation, and they've written a lot of their own AI actions, for lack of a better term, to help automate as much of the tier 2 and tier 3 work as possible. And quite frankly, they did something really, really interesting around automating vulnerability management, leveraging AI, which is really, really creative. And that's great if you trust it. That's great if you can have predictability around the outcomes. I don't think we're there yet. And I know we're getting closer, but I don't think we're there yet, even with the appropriate guardrails that are in place. And so the human is always going to have a role in this, whether it's threat hunting, incident management, or decision making under uncertainty. I mean, that's really the value of the human being. We just need to get rid of the high volume tasks and let something that is much more effective at distilling a lot of data very, very quickly, allow our human beings to make really informed, complex decisions.
Yep. Yeah, that reminds me of the early days in threat hunting and incident response. There was a joke that you'd spend a half an hour writing your query and
Right.
then you would submit it and you would go get a cup of coffee because it's going to be an hour before the query returns any results.
100%.
And that is not very valuable work for your most, valuable threat hunting um, folks on the team. So,
Look, Shawn, it wasn't that long ago. It was maybe 6 months ago that, your incident responders or your tier 3 and tier 4 would come in, pop open their daily threat briefings, copy and paste IOCs into, Splunk queries and push, push search, go grab their 2 cups of coffee, hang it out the water cooler, and come back and see if there were any hits because they had to go look at, 365 or 7 years worth of data or whatever the case was.
yeah.
The good news is with cloud computing, the ability to dynamically add compute resources, bring your own AI models that you're now seeing today, a lot of those steps are being automated in the process. You're able to come in with actions versus come in and create work.
hmm Yeah, and I love your focus on automation. I think we have a shared background in that space. I'm a big SOAR guy. I've seen it revolutionize some of our customer environments. For example,
Yep,
we just worked with an insurance company for 3 months at the end of the year. They purchased Cortex X SOAR for
yep.
a very specific use case in their SOC. They were getting 150,000 alerts a month, and they had a team of 5 people that were triaging all of those alerts manually, zero automation. And we brought them from zero automation to 50% automation in 3 months as like a side project. And the CISO was blown away by those results and saw it as sort of a flywheel because now one of those people on the 5-man team, they can spend time building automations, which frees up more time, and it
100%.
kind of has this like snowball effect. So yeah, I think automation is a big part of it. Like the way I think about AI is sort of the brain that helps analyze the data. It's the security analytics engine, but the drawback with security analytics was always that it would fire alerts and it wouldn't do anything. Like a SIM is an entirely passive tool. It just collects logs. It doesn't take action on your network. And that's where automation can step in and block that user account that's been compromised or disable
Yep.
that IP address or isolate a host.
Reset
Yeah, they're,
passwords, whatever the case might be, 100%. It's
yep,
funny you say that because if I think about the journey that even we've gone through at Palo,
yeah,
um, we've gone through a tremendous amount of automation. The business has grown roughly sevenfold over the last 8, 9 years, right? And you've probably seen that we're making some pretty significant acquisitions to the business. And our SOC team, I think I have this right, is processing like sevenfold volume of alerts. 100% of our low level alerts are handled by automation, and we have 13 people that manage a 25,000 or 20,000 person company. I mean,
yeah.
it's really remarkable.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have customers that have 50 plus folks in their SOC, just tier one analysts triaging alerts, and they're complaining about alert fatigue. And I'm like, if Palo can do it with a dozen people, why can't you? I think it's that, stuck in a legacy mindset. They're not willing to modernize.
Well,
Um,
the problem is we do a lot of the same mundane tasks over and over, right? I mean, I remember back in the days when we were doing, phishing enrichment. Hey, have we seen this IOC before? Let's go out to virus total and let's go detonate this attachment. And I know that this, Nigerian prince really isn't asking for my money and, all of these things, but we did the same thing over and over. That's a perfect use case for automation, right? That's also a perfect use case, quite frankly, for artificial intelligence. And I think the force multiplier is leveraging AI in automation, and if you do it correctly and effectively, um, it will not only help you in streamlining your processes, because a lot of people still have very, very rigid or brittle policies that tend to break, right? We've got 3-ring binders of SOPs that are collecting layers of dust that most people don't know what's in. And if I can incorporate that into my actions, my processes, my incident handling process, then I'm actually really improving the operational outcome of the team, and I'm better aligned to the business. So I would say the future of SOAR isn't orchestration, it's intent.
Hmm. What do you mean by that? What it's intent in that it's acting based on some sort of guidance you've given the system?
That's exactly it. In other words, SOAR doesn't disappear per se, right? It disappears into the platforms and technologies that we use, but it's about making the SOC more effective. Back to the point I was making earlier around humans are really good at complex decision making. And, you know, the SOAR is just an enabler to get to that point, right? Let me knock out the mundane, let me knock out the repetitive, low value tasks, and let me put it into a situation where I am now focused on what is the intent that I'm trying to accomplish here for my business.
Oh, I see, I see. Yeah, so freeing up the cycles of the people to follow through on that intent. I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, one thing I think about often is how those SOPs in your three-ring binder that are collecting dust were designed for legacy tools, legacy
Yeah,
processes. And
yep,
we have the whole tier one, tier two, tier three analysts, your threat hunters, maybe your cyber threat intel team, the typical
right.
SOC structure. Maybe that goes away on a new model, a modern SOC model, because the tier one's probably going to be automated by AI and SOAR, and some of those other functions are are like task oriented. Like the CTI team, they go out and they scrub through a bunch of PDFs looking for indicators of compromise and they push that into the tip. Well, like you should automate that. Absolutely. So I think about it on analogy with building an autonomous vehicle. You don't
Mhm.
just like slap actuators on the gas pedal and the steering wheel and put some sensors on the outside of the car and call it an autonomous vehicle. You kind of redesign the vehicle from the ground up with autonomy
100%.
in mind.
Yep,
Um, so have you seen customers start to go down that path and start to rethink how their SOC is organized from a people perspective?
100%. I
Interesting.
mean, no, there's no better example than us internally, right? If I think about Palo SOC, we have automated out the tier one function through orchestration, the adoption of AI that allows our team to now be much more proactive, um, where they can spend their time on threat hunting, they can spend their time in architecture, they can spend their time on high value tasks, and that has led to an amazing outcome related to higher retention and lower burnout. I mean, I don't think
Hmm.
we've lost a person on the team in several years, and it's because automating root cause analysis is 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 the holy grail, right? The analyst doesn't have to figure out how the attacker got in. It's about relying on the tools and techniques to help them and show them the map so they can make informed decisions saying, is this an architecture issue? Is this a vulnerability issue? Is this shadow IT problems? How did this happen? And what are the controls that we need to put in place to compensate for this going forward? And I think that's the opportunity that's in front of us. Now, we also have a very unique situation at Palo because we've got a world-class incident response team with our Unit 42 team. So we are attacked on a very regular basis, because if you can knock out the world's single largest cybersecurity company, imagine what that would mean for our clients. So we take security extremely seriously, and quite frankly, it's a privilege. We love the fact that we are such a valuable target.
Yeah, I'm sure you get to see a lot of interesting stuff. I know I've worked in the SOC at Black Hat a couple of
Yep.
times, and
Yeah.
we'll deploy Palo's technology to monitor the network, and it's a very dirty network. There's lots of folks that are trying to prove themselves. So, and we learned so much in just 3 days of the conference. I can only imagine if that's every day you come to work and you are the
Look,
biggest target in the world.
look, Shawn, there's a reason why people turn off Wi-Fi on their devices when they go to Black Hat. That's where stuff gets tested and tried.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
100%.
And everyone in Vegas knows that too. I've had like cab drivers comment, it's Black Hat week. I don't have a phone. I just left it
Right,
at home.
exactly. Exactly. That's
Yeah,
100% correct.
that's awesome. Just going through my notes real quick to see if there are any bullet points I wanted to hit. Oh, one thing I wanted to ask you about, PJ, is
Sure.
are you having conversations with customers about this tension between best of breed point products and a platform approach? I know Nikesh has tried to like coin the term platformization because it doesn't roll off the tongue. I don't know if it's quite catching on, but we'll go with it. Um, I know I get a lot of pushback with customers because they feel like they have to make a compromise if they go with a platform and they might lose out on some features or capabilities of best of breed products. What do you see the pendulum swinging in one way or the other?
Uh,
Your
Look, I
completely
think
unbiased opinion.
I will give you my unbiased opinion because from my vantage point, having done this as long as I have, and having been involved in as many incident response situations that I have, there is an integration tax that organizations are paying. And that integration tax, in many cases, is, I mean, I did a project for uh, a government agency who will remain nameless, and it was 6 to 12 months just trying to get logs to talk to each other.
Hmm.
And we don't think about that, right? I think I read a statistic where the average Fortune 500 company has more than 70 security products in their stack. And yet, if you think about the line of business, we've standardized on a single ERP platform. We've standardized on a single CRM platform. We've been doing platformization for as long as I can remember. It just hasn't been applied to cybersecurity. But I think people are now understanding and appreciating this integration tax that I brought up is really stretching the team. There's nothing worse than doing an investigation only to find out that the events that you thought you had are not there.
Hmm.
It's like, I'm close, I'm close, I'm close. Oh, I don't know how
Yeah.
it happened. And a lot of that's because, oh, I didn't realize said system was no longer feeding me those logs, or Jesus, I didn't even realize that we had opened up, or our development team had added, 200 new hosts into our cloud environment in AWS, and they came in because they had non-prod front end attached to a prod back end, right?
Hmm.
This shadow IT problem is so pervasive that it's really important for organizations today to break down silos. And these silos of stitching together network and endpoint and cloud and identity, we're at a point now where we can't invest the energy and effort to integrate it. It needs to be born integrated.
Hmm.
And that's the model that we're taking here at Palo. I think it's the right model. And the reality is, if you think about the threat actor today, it's complexity. That's the threat actor.
Hmm.
Because, the SOC didn't outgrow SIM because it was bad tech. It outgrew it because attackers got faster and environments got messier.
And they relish that complexity, right? It's
Of
more,
course they do.
a more target rich environment, more vulnerabilities to
100%.
exploit. Yeah.
100%. And it's amazing to me the number of organizations that rely on an annual pen test or a quarterly red team to say, oh, that's a good indicator of what my attack surface is. If you're not doing it continuously, because let's face it, it's kind of like, water in a river, right? It's always looking for the path of least resistance. There's a reason why we have oxbows, right? And that's exactly what the adversary is doing. They're looking for the path of least resistance. So too are developers, right? They're
Hmm.
saying,
Yeah,
how
that's
quickly
true.
can I get my code out the door? And as I like to say, Shawn, show me a compensation plan and I'll show you behavior,
Yeah,
right?
that's true. Yep. My job is to get the app up and make it accessible. And then I walk away.
A
Yeah.
hundred percent. And if you're creating a new feature that's going to be driven, but that's going to drive incremental revenue, what does the CFO and what does the board and what do the investors care about, right? The shareholders are saying it's all about increasing revenue or decreasing costs. That's it.
Hmm.
Whereas, security has always been caught in this quagmire of, I remember 20 years ago when we were talking about ROSI, return on security investments, as a way to justify our jobs.
Mm.
And now it's about risk mitigation and But I'll give you a great example. I was working with a large insurance company that was entering into the Chinese market, and their big concern was, we've built these AI pricing algorithms and models that we're leveraging today, and we don't know if we're working with trusted partners in the Chinese market. And so what are we doing to leverage from a security perspective to know whether or not it's safe for us to be in this market? Maybe it's not. And so those types of situations is the real value. And I think that's why you're seeing CISOs today that are a lot less technologists and more business people who understand real risk, not just, I've received, 1,500, alerts on my endpoint over the last 24 hours. No one cares about that. That's not the metrics that matter. The metrics that matter are, can you securely integrate said merger and acquisition company in weeks versus months? Can you allow me to enter into a brand new market quickly? Can you ensure that these transactions that we're doing with the federal government are in fact going to be protected and secure, and we're going to meet the compliance mandates that are set forward for us without disrupting the business? That's the conversation that we should be having. And we don't have it enough, candidly.
Yeah, and then you run into the problem of justifying your existence based on a counterfactual. Like the security program costs X dollars, and we have to weigh that against the possible breach that Gartner tells us is $4 million on average.
Correct.
And
Correct.
and for business leaders, they've never, or many of them haven't experienced a breach, so they're a little skeptical of that number. And it was always so hard to explain how, yes, you're going to spend $1 million, but you're going to prevent $4 million. The reason I gravitated to SOAR is because I could have those conversations about true ROI, because it boiled down to saving on operational expenses. Like, I know you said this isn't about
100%.
removing people, but for some organizations, they have to do more with less. And SOAR was the best tool in the toolbox to 100% pay for itself. And this company that I worked with, it paid for itself in 3 months. And now everything from now on is gravy. So yeah, I hear you. The justification and the business conversation around security is becoming interesting. One other topic I wanted to hit you with, and it's sort of related, especially on the people front, is a lot of organizations, if they're not a technology company, they outsource huge elements of their security program to an MDR or an MSSP. Um, what are your thoughts about, when does that make sense for an organization, or should they bring those capabilities in-house and leverage AI and automation to kind of scale?
It's a really good question. And having run a managed services firm, as well as, advise clients on the appropriate course of action regarding, whether to do it yourself or to outsource it, I think it comes down to one fundamental question. What is a core competency of my business? And if the core competency of my business is, we are going to be the best cybersecurity firm on the planet, because cybersecurity is a competitive differentiator for us in market, then I think you invest. If that's not your core competency, either you're in a geographically undesirable area where you can't find the appropriate talent, or it's just not something that's part and parcel to what you do on a daily basis, then I think it's absolutely appropriate to look at organizations that can help you in that process. We have a lot of clients that say, look, I don't want to do this. This isn't my business. This isn't what I do. Can you, or do you know someone that can help me take care of this? The best SOCs that I've seen are focused, clear, and outcome driven. They are big believers in less noise, clearer ownership, and quite frankly, faster decisions. Now, AI and platforms are giving teams the bandwidth to work on these problems that humans are uniquely suited to solve. Because our goal isn't just to lower mean time to response, right? That's not really our goal. What we really want is we want a high mean time between infections, right?
Right.
And even in our own SOC, we measure success by how much nothing happened today. I mean, that sounds crazy,
It's the
but I
most
think we
thankless
have
job in
like
the world.
I think we
What
have
happened
like
today? Nothing.
8
Good job.
severity events a day or something like that. And again, we're sipping our own Merlot here at Palo Alto, but because of Cortex and our solution suite, we have the visibility to see everything in the automation to ensure most of it never reaches a human. And I would say for your listeners, the winning SOC strategy isn't more tools or more people. It's really clarity, focus, and faster decisions. I mean, the way I view it is your SOC should feel calm even under fire. In my mind, that is the definition of a successful security operations, and quite frankly, a successful cybersecurity strategy in general. Your SOC should feel calm even under fire.
Yeah, that's a pretty incredible thought. I've literally seen people have heart attacks in war rooms when responding to nasty ransomware
100%.
outbreaks. So that's a wonderful vision you've painted there, PJ. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to cover, but I feel like that's a great note to leave our listeners on. Like that's the aspirational where we could go if we march down this path of SOC modernization. Anything else? Any other thoughts?
I would add one element as we come to a close, and that is I'm always reminded by the famous Wayne Gretzky quote, right? You always want to be where the puck is going, not where the puck was, right? Or something along those lines. I think you know what the quote I'm referencing.
Yeah.
And it's funny, if I think about the transformation of security over the last 10 years, right? For 10 years ago, we were always focused on the quote perimeter, right? Which is firewalls, IPS, IDS, proxies, all of that fun stuff. And I think we pivoted perhaps too hard around endpoint, right? We pivoted very much focused on endpoint detection and response, and everything happens at the endpoint, and it doesn't matter if it's a mobile device or whatever. And I would say that's not where the puck is going to be, right? I think about non-human identities. I think about artificial intelligence and our adoption of it. I think about our ecosystem, right? We are now integrating more and more with our supply chain and our partners through APIs, and we're relying more and more on cloud computing, and that's just increased attack surface. And again, I go back to the point I was making earlier. If you want your SOC to feel calm even under fire, you need to think about where is my business going to be in the next 3 to 5 years, and ask yourself the following question. Knowing what I know about the future, am I prepared today? And if the answer is no, that should help you in formulating your vision and strategy around what you need to do to make sure you are not a roadblock or an impediment to success for your business.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, PJ, for joining us on the WEI Tech Talk podcast. I found the conversation super insightful. I'll just point our listeners to wei.com/cybersecurity. It's a website where you can learn more about WEI and our services. And then, of course, you have Palo Alto Networks.com. Any other closing remarks or thoughts before we
Shawn,
wrap up?
I enjoyed the opportunity, and this was a fun conversation. Let's do it again soon.
I appreciate it. Yes, likewise. Thanks, PJ.